Glad to have you here. Well, we're here to discuss some of the top stories that made it to front pages of our dailies, and we have here the Punch newspaper, and the Punch says the stories. They're about a few stories really that made it to the front page today, and the first one we have here says General Hydrocarbons accounts frozen amid $225 million debt dispute with First Bank. And another one, the next one says Afenifere Igboho offers support as police squad combat Southwest bandits. And then the next one says power stagnates as 4,500 megawatts despite $3.23 billion loans. And moving down, we see more stories here. It says Senate grills Biden, Trump orders pay tribute as U.S. buries Carter. It says Senate grills finance minister over subsidy savings. On page 5 of the newspaper, we see a story here that says man jailed 2 years for defrauding American of $345,000. And then on the next pages, Sanwo-Olu signs 3.36 trillion naira 2025 budget, open 5 roads, which made our top stories even today. And the lead story on the Punch today says Nigeria, China plan collaboration on military training, arms production. Well, China, the kicker says China announces 1 billion Chinese yuan granted for Nigeria orders to train over 7,000 military personnel. Very interesting topics we see right on the Punch today. And Mohammed, you are here with us, so let's discuss the lead story here. It says Nigeria and China have planned a collaboration on military training and arms production. We know that Nigeria and China have this robust partnership. Yes. The Chinese media have reportedly said Africa as a continent is China's biggest trade partner. Right. And we know that they have visited the foreign minister came, visited a few countries in Congo and all of that. And so what does this signify? Because 1 billion yuan is roughly $136 million. What does this signify for us as a nation and the continent?
The continent as a whole.
Yes.
So maybe a little bit of a background, and I think you painted the picture already. Thank you again for having me. So the minister of Chinese Minister of Foreign Affairs was actually on an African tour and almost on the final leg. Just like you said, he has visited other African countries, Congo, Niger, Chad, and some other ones before eventually settling down in Nigeria. So over time, Nigeria's Minister of Finance was there, Yusuf Tugar, yesterday.
Yes, he was.
Mentioned the need for China and Nigeria to be able to collaborate, especially when it comes to military trainings and providing those military gears, some of the basic facilities that military need. Now, if you may recall, the Chief of Defense Staff, I think was on Al Jazeera last week,
yes, and
was actually complaining the delay in legislative process to be able to pass some of the major tools, the fighter jets and military equipment that actually needed by frontline troops. So he complained about that. It take a whole lot of, the legislative process to release funds. And that is often even connected to what the National Assembly recently mentioned when appraising the performance of the 2024 budget, how there were delays and the performance of capital projects where military gears, military facilities are also included in those. So there were delays in releasing funds for those particular purposes. So the Nigerian military have actually complained in the time past about not getting those equipment that they needed to be able to combat insecurity on time. So this coming now, with that discussion yesterday, Yusuf Tugar, the Minister of Finance, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, mentioned that because this will actually be like a direct contribution, more or less like a bilateral agreement between Nigeria and China. This is actually not a line item in the budget. You have to be able to go through, the red tape and the bureaucracy to be able to sign here and there. So it's expected that China, with these contributions and with these promise that they made yesterday to us, it's in the area of facilities, I'm talking about military equipment, in the area of training, it's actually expected that that could actually be a good ground for us to at least be able to combat insecurity headlong. That is one. Two, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, because at the time, the journalists were actually asking him that hope this will not be another imperialism in another form, where you're trying to be able to, you know, colonize Africa. And man said, no, that's actually not their interest. The interest in the final analysis is to be able to strengthen the relationship between China and Africa. And that's actually what informed this particular movement, or this trip by the foreign minister. So it is believed that if their signings and other things were actually done yesterday, and the minister promised as well that these will be expedited to ensure that this comes to Nigeria as quickly as possible, not only to Nigeria and other African countries. I mean, those 7 of them actually that he visited. I think he's going to be able to complete it over the weekend. So the question people are asking is, maybe we can now say that President Tinubu's foreign trip are actually yielding those results, perhaps, because now after this, we've seen the Indian president come at a time. There were reports that the French president will likely be coming around this year, and now the Chinese foreign minister came down to the nation. So this will actually be a kind of the work in progress, or the background things that the president has done that's now attracting all these foreigners, all these foreign players to be able to come into Nigeria. So we believe that perhaps, let's see how this will be able to pan out in days ahead. The 1 billion yuan, just like you said, about $130 to $140 million is actually the agreement only on military arrangements alone. So because the man mentioned how about in other fields that can be able to collaborate, you know, infrastructure, education, and they said these other arrangements will actually be signed in days to come. So as we strengthen our bilateral relationship with China, we expect to be able to have some other arrangements with them when it comes to other key sectors, critical sectors that are likely going to be able to drive economic growth and bring about inclusive prosperity. So this is actually a good direction. The challenge or the task to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Chief of Defense Staff, and the people within the military ecosystem is to ensure that this is actually channeled for the purpose to which is actually directed. So the military over time have actually been complaining, oh yes, we are not receiving enough equipment on time, the release of key military fatigues, military gears that were actually needed were not released because of the bureaucratic process involved in releasing budget items. I just told you now, we're told capital project performance for 2024 budget was just about 48% or 43%. But if you look at the recurrent expenditure, that's about 100%. So the Chief of Defense Staff, Christopher Musa, in fact, was mentioning that to them, saying, oh, one of the major challenges they've had is the inability to be able to release some of the things that they needed, those facilities that they needed on time, especially for those at the battlefront, at the frontline troops, for them to be able to prosecute the engagement that they are having. So this could be another endeavor in another direction that could be able to help the nation, at least in our fight against insecurity.
Interesting, so very interesting. And I would say, I would ask this. I don't think there's free money anywhere, right? And well, this is not the first time I've seen China pledging this thing. Last year we heard of a 50 billion pledge over 3 years, you know, to Africa. So I would ask, if we are getting all this, what does China want in return?
Okay. Okay. So the idea here is a cooperation, a bilateral cooperation, where, because in fact that was this question you asked, and that is very, very vital, was what the Minister of Foreign Affairs was asked. So just like you said, no free money. So what is in it for China? And as well as these other players. So Adiman mentioned is a bilateral cooperation, trainings where in fact some Nigerians will be sent over there. Those equipment that China for getting those basic skill sets that actually needed to be able to produce some of those things. Then China at the other end could use Africa to be able to get some of their importation in. That's one. So the arrangement there is we have Nigerians who visit Nigeria's military echelon that will be able to visit China. We have Chinese people as well who come around here and learn some of the dynamics that actually be able to happen here to fight whatever is actually going in the nation. So that's one. I think the other thing I think I'll be able to put out there that the man said is that something to be able to mention. I think let me just be able to so look at this. So Tugari re-echoed. I'm talking about you re-echoed the stance and dispelled the notion that Nigeria would rely on private military. Rather, to tackle security challenges, we work towards solving our problems by ourselves. Work towards solving the problems. And how do we do that? So we see this interaction with China, really, because the idea there is not releasing. So this 1 billion yuan, it's not like they're just releasing funds to Nigeria. Remember, good. So it's releasing military worth equipment and facilities in that particular value to allow Nigerians to be able to fund some of those things. So it's not like just releasing the money, but as far as some of these things are concerned, when countries sign bilateral relationship, it may be able to go beyond the immediate gain of what you want to get here. Sometimes it can be an attempt to be able to buy some countries to your side when it comes to international discussions, let's say at United Nations General Assembly, to ensure that, by the time you are now be able to close ranks, by the time nations are trying to be able to make things to be able to go through at the at the United Nations General Assembly, for example, you tend to be able to have your own friends who you are able to have bilateral relationship with and interactions with to ensure that your own proposals could be able to pass through. So it's always like that. But the idea here, the 4 nations that the man is actually visiting, the basic idea there is to ensure that China's relationship with Africa is strengthened. And I think it is there. So this could also be able to clear an inroad. Perhaps could create the inroads for China's into, further investment into Africa, further investment into Nigeria. But what is in it for them? Maybe in the immediate, we are not saying that yet, because you see Wang Yi yesterday, the minister of the Chinese foreign affairs minister, was actually quite upbeat and was happy about this leg of these African countries that he visited and how they're actually planning to be able to strengthen their interactions and relationship with them. So it's in days ahead we will be able to see how this will be able to pan out. Definitely we'll be able to see that. But until then, the only question we'll just be able to ask Nigerians as well, and those actually at the position of authority, the decision makers, the executors of these, is to ensure that this is actually diverted, this is actually channeled to the proper to the proper venture to which is actually earmarked. I think that would actually be what we needed them to be able to achieve with that.
Very, very, very interesting conversation. We'll be moving on to the Vanguard newspaper. We have a couple of stories on the front page today. The first one here says NBS to include prostitution, other illegal activities in GDP calculation. Very interesting. Moving on. Bloody January. Accidents, fires claim 242 lives in 8 days. I believe this is referring to what we've seen in Florida. Tinubu seeks increase in Los Angeles.
California.
Tinubu seeks increase in currency swap between Nigeria and China, based on what we just discussed. And here's the budget defense. Edu seeks closed door session on fuel subsidy proceeds. And coming down, we see a story on the page on the 9th page. It says Chadian capital. Yes, calm after deadly presidential palace attack. And the image says Governor Sanwo-Olu signs 2025 appropriation bill into law. And then the lead story here on the Vanguard page for today, Friday, says Insecurity. Nigerians lose loved ones, now live in fear. Mass abductions characterize 2024. Northeast ranks highest, Southeast stops ransom payments, account for 40% nationwide. Cyber criminals defraud Nigerians of 8.8 billion naira, over 200 security personnel killed, 140 policemen in FCT. Security experts, CSOs speak on challenges, opportunities in 2024. This is a very crucial topic. The topic of insecurity is one that we've been discussing for decades in Nigeria, and I think this kind of unpacks what's been going on in the past 12 months. as we have seen, which is really unfortunate based on what we've seen here. The numbers are not looking good for Nigeria,
I mean, the
Mohammed.
spectacles are not looking good. They are not.
What's your take on this?
So, so Vanguard doing a bit of an overview of security situation in 2024, paint a very bleak picture. I'm sure you'll be able to read the writers that followed the banal headlines that we see there. So if you may remember as well, towards the third quarter of the month, towards the third quarter of last year, towards the end of the third quarter, around October or thereabout, the NBS even released statistics saying 2.2 trillion naira was actually paid
ransoms,
as ransoms. So, coupled with cybercrime as well, close to about 8.8 billion was what they'd actually be able to earn in that period. Northeast, they've actually been the eye of the storm for a very long while, still be able to rank highest. So, you see Nigerians groaning, lamenting, in pain. So, in the marked bloodshed, the despair is really, really unbelievable, and it's touching on every lives. In fact, it's and that's why systematically year on year you see defense becoming or being the sector with the largest allocation, defense and security, because it's more or less like the only. In the last 4 or 5 years, 8 years, because I think I'm looking at the budget, the last 8 budgets have systematically have defense and security as the largest sector or the sector with the highest allocation. And
made priority
priority for years. Yes. But and every year in, year out, you tend to be able to see, constant escalation of insecurity situation. And the question you ask is, what is happening? Are these things not really achieving? Because with those amount of money that is invested, that is directed towards that, what is happening? Maybe that's one of the reasons what we mentioned earlier when we analyzed about delays in releasing funds for money to be able to procure security facilities and things that they actually needed. Maybe that could be. But if you look at this extensive analysis that was actually done by them in FCT alone, I mean, we're saying about 140 police officers, were killed alone in 2014. Here's a situation in a country where we are still saying we are under police. We don't have enough police officers. They are understaffed. The Nigerian police force itself, and losing a staggering number of about 140. So if you do that as a proportion of what they have, I mean, that will really quite be unfortunate. In addition to soldiers that were killed, in fact, this January we've had, I think until the military confirmed it 2 days ago over the weekend, one of the frontline states, the frontline military camps in Borno State, that the Boko Haram ISWAP members went ahead to be able to attack, and in fact, there's that now they still recording number of soldiers that have died as a result of that.
I mean, just yesterday or thereabouts, or recently, we heard the news of Boko Haram attacking a police station. Right? And it's the audacity
for them to have to be able to do that. So and that's why, because the audacity itself, and I think the audacity is actually hinged on the sophisticated arsenals and armories that they have. Because look at some of the weapons that these people brandished. The one that happened in Borno over the weekend, some of the soldiers, of course, was actually an ambush, was an attack, but they went there to go and attack them at their base camp. And then you see the concept of facilities, because with these videos, I think I saw in one of the media stations that released a little clip, a footage of what actually happened. You see the sophisticated arms that they wielded, that these people actually be able to wield. So how did they get that? Because all some of these equipment, some of these arsenals, this armory don't come cheap. So maybe there could have been some people that are actually supporting them, that is giving them that particular kind of support, you understand, coming out from there. So the major question that we've seen is, who is actually bankrolling these bandits, terrorists? That's one. For them to have that audacity, just like you said, for them to have that confidence to attack military barracks, military installations at a time, because apart from the human losses, we've had cases where they've attacked installations as well. There was a time we're hearing about, the power installations, the telecom installations. They've attacked them to be able to send message to Nigeria. So the insecurity is still, it appears that the government, yet, even though it's a mixed bag, have not had a good grasp of exactly what is happening in that space, a full grasp of it. So perhaps, and that's why people in Nigeria are saying, maybe they need to be able to seek external assistance. And with this kind of, Chinese bilateral agreements, with the deals that we actually signed and those assistance coming from China, maybe that could at least be able to help us to get a grasp of the situation. Because the implication of that insecurity, remember, it doesn't be able to, so it's an hydrated problem. The food insecurity we're having, that feed into food inflation, the poverty level that we are seeing, and the myriad, the multidimensional challenges that we are facing. Remember, it is not unconnected to this insecurity. So until we are able to get a good hang on that and see a situation where what we're getting, getting a good hang of our insecurity challenge, some of the associated or underlying challenges, some of the connected, some of the critical socioeconomic indicators as well, health, food, agriculture, some of these as well, we may not be able to solve them as we may actually desire. So I think that is needed, because if the insecurity economy itself, got up about 2.2 trillion, remember, at the 2024 budget, the defense itself was about 1.8 trillion. So if insecurity budget alone, if insecurity, what some of these players in that space are getting is even more than what you get in the budget. You can see that it's a booming economy, and the government needed to be able to cut that particular pipeline, that pipeline that allows them to be able to get that money. Otherwise, these people have seen it as their go-to ways of making money, and that needed to be stopped for us to be able to have greater good for everyone in this country.
Very.
And I think we also be able to see the Lagos State signing the budget into law yesterday.
Yes.
That's quite good. Maybe the question we always be able to ask is, let's see how these will reflect in the lives of the people.
The translation
and the translation effect. Translation effect is really, really very important. And then lastly, a little bit about this session, because in fact there was so at the Senate yesterday, the ministers that started coming in to defend their budget. So the joint session. So Minister Edu, the Minister of Finance and the Coordinating Minister was there, and there was a question asked of him about fuel subsidies, to give an account of how much. And he requested for a closed door session. I don't know why that is the case anyway, because in fact, they asked us to degenerate into about this session. Why can't we be able to discuss it in the full public glare of Nigerians? What type of transparency? So how that will still be, and I think that's what you read there about, requesting for a closed door session to have that discussion over fuel subsidy. So the back and forth was there. It was a very rowdy session, but eventually we couldn't be able to see. I didn't be able to see what eventually happened at the end of the day. But they should be able to at least let us know. You remove the fuel subsidy publicly. I think there is a need to actually be very transparent and tell us how much have actually come in, how much have we saved, how has the money been appropriated over the years, and what has been the impact of that on Nigerians. And more importantly as well, so for people just to be able to mention about prostitutions and illegal, I think we're talking about drug trafficking to be included in our GDP from next year. I was at that event yesterday where NESG and MBS organized the gathering. So it was just to discuss about GDP rebasing and CPI rebasing. So there was a discussion around that. And then in fact, a lot of people laughed when that word was mentioned. Oh, we are going to be able to we'll be including, what's it called? We'll be including prostitutions. And, because it's a very serious economy
illegal activities.
Of course, if you know the kind of what goes on there is a serious economy.
The data about the kidnappings, it rocked the whole country.
Rocked the whole country.
So things like this, we will not be shocked to see the amount of money that goes into that's earned in revenue from all these activities.
So that's why. So maybe those, and that's why I'm sure the government is trying to see everywhere to be able to pay this $1 trillion economy target, but it will be, because 30 December alone, CNN did like an expose on how Nigerian youth are actually coming for Dirty December,
Yes.
and the kind of revenue that's actually coming into Nigeria as a result of that venture. So I'm sure some of these things, by the time they released it for the GDP,
Yes.
maybe we'll see how much exactly is actually churning out from some of these activities. Drug trafficking, because now you hear different kind of drug names. They will tell you this name. In fact, this one Canadian loud, that one there, and you see how much money people are pummeling. People are really pumping into buying drugs because they want to get high and things like that. So I know there is something really, really there, because when the Station General of Information was talking yesterday, I was actually there. I was listening to him, and he was saying, "Do you know how much money go on in that activity? Some of these, supposedly called illegal activity. So they said they're going to call it underground economy. so they're not to be able to paint a picture of illegality, but they'll call it underground economy, and then they'll couch, things like prostitution, drug trafficking, and then maybe kidnapping as well that we're talking about, couched into it going further. So at least it's really good. We'll actually be hoping to be able to hear what they have for us.
We look forward to that. So moving on to Business Day paper today, Friday. The top story here says real estate overtakes oil and gas as Nigeria's third largest sector. The next story here says while First Bank shareholders seek to stop strange 350 billion naira private placement. And the next one here says first telecoms tariffs hike in 10 years to fuel investment. Commentary is foreign policy and the path to peace in a dangerous neighborhood. I think the last one here on page 30 is Asia's EV boom soars appetite for Nigeria's oil. But let's draw our attention to the lead story here. Real estate overtakes oil and gas as Nigeria's third largest sector. Crop production, telecoms emerge standalone sectors. Rebasing will ensure indicators accurately reflect current economic realities.
I think that's what I want to hand it.
Yes, you mentioned that.
So the rebasing is what they're doing. So there has been that discussion about rebasing. Most importantly, the informal economy. I think we'll be able to talk about that. So most of the informal economy and underground economy, because the kind of money that go on at the informal base, maybe you're talking about kiosk owners, you're talking about activities that go on in some basic market, maybe a Balogun market, for example, that are not fully captured. Balogun market, Tinubu market, some of the strategic market, maybe in Lagos, in Owerri, in Rivers, then you will see that some of these things are even far, far more, and everyone agreed on that. There's a general agreement and consensus that more activities, more economic velocity take place within those space. So the rebasing is generally needed, and then at least coming out, MBS coming out and then reading it out to us, telling us about how that will actually be, is very much expected and very much welcome. How much that will be exactly is what we want to see. So now with that restructuring, because we have been asking for recalibration of the Nigeria's economy. So if you look at the Nigeria's activity space before now, it just contained like about 42 sectors. Sectors, when I say, okay, so we have broadly speaking, two sectors, oil and non-oil. And then when you look at them, okay, maybe say 42 activities. So we have two broad sectors, then 42 activities. Mining, quarrying, health, human health and nutrition, and things like that. But the way it is in 42, if you look at them, it tends to be able to make the composition very bogus and big. But if we do the rebasing, and we can be able to conscript some of those economy maybe into, let's say, like about 10 core sectors. For example, just this energy, all this is about mining, quarrying, power, maybe, collapse everything under one broad umbrella, and then you do that. So I think they mentioned that yesterday too. So we're looking at maybe the economy will actually be constrained into like about 14 economic bases.
So that we're looking at here, because the story says crop production is
actually taking so instead of actually now at the time crop production under agriculture.
Yes.
So we have under agriculture, crop production. You have I think crop production was like the major driver in that space. So you have fisheries, you have farming. These are several activities, and the way they'll be able to put them together, yes, they'll put them under agriculture as an heading. The other sectors, the way they make this, so by the time you look at those what can I call those granular breakdown, you have like about 42 different activities that make up the Nigeria's economic space. So at the time, the people have actually been asking is, these 42, people tend to be able to lose track of actually seeing how they are performing. But if you try to be able to collapse everything, maybe under thematic headings, just like we said, agriculture to encompass all these, right? Maybe we have digital economy. I think that's another space that has actually not been there that they're trying to be able to bring in. Then the underground economy I mentioned.
Yeah.
Then we have energy economy. Then you have, I know you have those segmentations, those buckets that you'll be able to put several activities in. Then we can at least be able to have a world view, a kind of a panoramic view of what go on. But and the way the rebasing is actually done is not be able to indicate something to us as well. I think you'll be able to read that out. Is to see how real estate at the time, because real estate, because there are some activities that have not been captured there, especially some of the informal components of it. So with it coming on board now, we are seeing it likely going to be able to overtake oil and gas sector. We are likely going to be able to see that. I think we're going to look at that. So crop production wants to be like, because crop production is the major driver of agriculture. We have other activity segments there, as I said. So we have crop production, for example. You have animal husbandry, that's another sector. You have fishery that it puts there. So I think they're trying to be able to put crop production because of food insecurity. To see, let's see what is going on there. So if you can be able to have crop production itself, farming activities, apart from the other ones. So livestock, because there's a ministry of livestock now that we have standalone. So maybe to have that sketched out of, extracted out of the broad agricultural scheme, let's see what that sector is doing and how it's going to be able to contribute to broader socio-economic development. So the NBS is actually trying to be able to do this with relevant think tanks and trying to be able to come out with substantive economic calibrations.
I've seen.
Exactly now. Good.
Economic calibrations. We've seen trade.
So trade, just telecommunication. So you just see them,
public.
Public utilities, administration. Thank you very much. So the way they were sketched out at the time may actually look so bogus and big. So sometimes there is a need to be able to bring all of these things together to let Nigerians have a clear picture of what some of those economic indicators actually entail. So I think it is always very important that we get that. So in days to come ahead, we have actually been asking for the rebasing, both for the GDP and inflation. Because as I regularly mention here, if you tell people Nigeria's inflation is 34%, a lot of people will disagree with you. A lot of people. Yeah, but they will still believe that what I bought yesterday compared to that, but now you tell me just 30-something% is inflation. So let the government, the statistical body, come out with their rebasing model. They started discussing that yesterday. Hopefully that by the end of the week, by the end of this week, the week today, we're actually expecting to release the guidelines and the content of those rebasing components and what will be involved there. Then we'll now be able to start the analysis on them and see how different sectors will actually be able to perform.
Yes, indeed. We really look forward to that. Very interesting topic that all eyes are on right now.
Of course.
It's very crucial to the future of the economy. But now let's move on to the cartoon of the day.
Okay.
We have today's cartoon. Looks... All right, so we...
A prominent associate, okay?
All right.
Entering the new year quietly, having ditched his flashy fleet, including...
It's a photo shows a prominent associate of the president entering the new year quietly, having ditched his flashy fleet, including 4 Rolls Royce for
a more austere, poverty-embracing lifestyle.
And it says, "Welcome to 2025." So obvious. So
what's exactly? Maybe a lot of people are we saying that kind of transition, changing of lifestyle? Because you can see. So we see, what's the word? It's like a scooter that is riding now.
It's like a locally made
wheel roller or something. What was it? Okay, maybe
bicycle.
So, but I think it's actually talking about welcome to the new reality, right? All of us coming back to a more austere, poverty-embracing lifestyle that people now needed to be able to adopt. So I think the reality is staring at all of us in the face. Because there's some dynamics that we see. Remember, before subsidy removal, for example, the presidency told us, the NMDPRA said we are consuming about 63 million liters, for example. as at last year, that amount has actually been able to constrict down to between 5 to 10 million liters per day. So, first of all, maybe people are parking their cars at home because of expensive fuel. You're not seeing a kind of an adjustment. And the president too mentioned it, like in one of his discussions, that maybe the life Nigerians have been living before he came on board was actually a fake life, Abi. That the subsidy we have actually been working on have actually been able to project us, giving us that lifestyle that is actually not what we should be living. That right now, this is more or less like we are being welcome to the new reality, right? Welcome to the new reality. And so, if you can have someone who has a Rolls Royce that was actually going to be able to coast down with it, and now had to be able to abandon it to adopt a more poverty, a more austere or modest lifestyle. Maybe it's just welcome to 2025 and welcome more to Tinubu's Tinubu 1.2 or Tinubu first administration, Tinubunomics, and how it is actually.
But is this what we are really seeing? Because I mean, if you look at the budget, there's a lot of allocation to private transportation, luxury transportation. I mean, just 1 billion, over 1 billion for the president and his vice alone. And of course, but does this align with the president's goal of reducing the cost of governance?
Okay, so I think the jury is still out there because the government has consistently maintained that the cost of governance, they've tried, because to them now, what they've actually done in mitigating the cost of governance have been, they reduced the number of foreign travels, they released the number of entourage that followed the president and the vice president to go there. We had cases, we had cases of where they went for Chogom and COP last year, Commonwealth event in Samoa. And remember COP in Baku as well. The president specifically mentioned, if you don't have anything to do in Baku, exactly, as a civil servant, we don't expect you to be there, except you are going using your own personal money. So that's one. But the presidential media chart, he mentioned as well, because people were asking about in terms of the numbers. I needed all these people to ensure that I actually be able to get through my policies and my programs.
Yeah, I was coming to that, but so that's we just don't have time because I mean, we look at the chart, of course.
At the same time as well, the allocations sometimes might actually be able to turn head. That at this point in time, when you're asking people to be able to tighten their belts, are you there really tightening your own belt?
You have no belt.
Maybe are you doing that too? Because it is so people are now more poverty embracing lifestyle, try to be able to adjust, even despite that people have actually been adjusting. But if you ask people to adjust, of course, the main question will be: is the government too trying to do same? They claim they're actually doing same. They claim that they're feeling that they're trying to be able to do same. But the extant reality, what is apparent to us, maybe is actually not indicating that.
Very
that might not be able to bode well for the people, So they say who comes to equity, as we always say. So if you tell me to be able to do something, I needed you. Charity, they say, begins at home. So if as my leader is telling me I should do this, I should be able to cut my coat, I should do this, and I'm seeing you always wearing flowing gown every now and then, how will I be able to cope? So maybe that's what Nigerians need to see. You lead from the front, let the leaders lead from the front. So if people are trying to be able to adjust, and people are definitely trying to do that, you see a lot of people on the street, people can't cut down on even basic necessities that normally should not be compromised. And that is what building another army of poverty-looking people. Just go out there, and I'm sure I was telling, was it not Liz here at the time that we were together, about some places here, some joint that I went to go and eat, and you'll be marveled that there are 2-3 people standing there. They did just tell you, please don't give me money, just buy me food. Can you imagine? Just as you're about to buy, even by myself, I just want to be able to manage what I came up here with. They're just there hugging around and just able to see, you need to buy. I just please, sir, I'm hungry. So you see, people are even asking, what I need to know is people asking you, please give me money. So you just say, please just buy me food to eat, and then try. So and that numbers kept increasing, and so we expect the president. A lot needs to be done, and we hope that we have really turned the corner, as they are claiming. We have turned the corner. Hope the power at least let's be able to have those light at the end of the
Yes.
light at the end of the tunnel.
We hope
I'm sure we
to.
cannot wait to be able to see.
We
when
cannot
that will be able
wait.
to
Some
take
of us
care.
have even begun to take our own torchlights because
We want to be able to get out of it on time.
right. Well,
Thank you very much.
very interesting conversations.
Thank you for
Unfortunately,
having
that's
me.
all we can take. Thank you very much,
Thank you
Mohammed,
for
for joining
having
us
me.
in the
Thank you for
studio
having me.
to discuss the top stories on the paper. Well, thank you for staying with us on our paper review segment. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this.